If you had trauma when you were little, I'm going to guess that you have made some really bad decisions in your life, like strange, self sabotaging decisions about relationships or jobs or the way you express yourself when you're angry. And you know you're doing something that's not right because the people around you get that sort of concerned, judgy face at you. Do you know the face I'm talking about? But because of that agitation inside from past trauma, you can't see in the moment that you are making a terrible decision. So instead of pulling back to think, you maybe, I don't know, blame other people for judging you, thinking, oh, it's just that they don't understand. And then you make the bad decision anyway to move in with somebody you just met, or marry someone who treats you badly, or go the other way and choose to isolate yourself or storm out of a job you actually liked and needed because your past trauma got triggered and you felt this urgent need to make that feeling stop. Have you done this? It is so hard. These are the decisions that change the course of your life. They can cut you off from what you want and keep you stuck and in danger of even more trauma. I call these trauma-driven decisions. You thought you were doing the right thing, but your trauma was distorting your perception. I'm Anna Runkle, also known as the Crappy Childhood Fairy, and I teach people to recognize and heal the adult symptoms of childhood PTSD. And if you've made some decisions that were driven by past trauma, I want to help you change that pattern and to look at how you know that's what you're doing when it's happening and teach you how to make better decisions going forward. Turn it around, even if you're still just in the early stages of healing from what happened to you. Okay, so a trauma-driven decision is when you choose something important without being in touch with what you actually want, with your own values, or with what is in your best interest. Because what happens in the moment you have to make the decision, you're thinking, oh no, I'm trapped, or oh, I better take whatever I can get, or I'm going to end up alone, or you submit to pressure from other people to make something like a financial decision that you know on some level is not a good idea. Think of balloon mortgages. Do you remember those? Like back in the 2000s, this happened a lot. You could buy a house and the payments for the first few years were miraculously low, like half what you'd expect, because the interest rate was super low, which makes a huge difference early on in the repayment cycle. But right there in the fine print, and it's not like they don't tell you to read the fine print. There's this fact that at 3 years or 5 years or whatever, the interest rates are going to go up, maybe way up. So coded into the monthly payments is the probability that they will balloon. They'll go way up. And for a lot of people who maybe went into mortgages at the low rate with a vague feeling of like, oh, I'm sure I'll have enough money when the time comes. Well, they didn't, and they lost their houses. And that's what happens around a lot of big decisions when you have CPTSD. You actually know cognitively that there's going to be trouble ahead, but you sort of balloon mortgage that thing. You get vague about the logical consequences and you go forward anyway, whatever the ultimate cost is going to end up being. Now, people who didn't have trauma, they'd say, no, that just doesn't seem too risky to me. But we look at the risk and we just kind of go blank and we go, I don't know, it seems like kind of good to me in the moment. Now, why do we do this? I'm going to speculate it's a brain thing. It could be dysregulation, which you've heard me talk a lot about. That's the chaotic state that you may have experienced when something triggers you, and you might feel flustered or your mind might go blank. And sometimes in dysregulation, you'll react with really strong emotions or even emotional numbness. And a lot of systems in your brain and nervous system are going slightly out of sync when you're dysregulated, and it's affecting your mood, your thinking, your physiology. And in particular, it can complicate your thinking when you're making a decision. And this is from a study out of the University of Wisconsin. I'll put a link to that in the description section below. But it turns out just the stress of making a decision can short circuit your reasoning and make it really hard to give appropriate weight to the risk involved in the decision that faces you. You can't see the downside of it, not accurately anyway, not in the moment. And at the same time, the stress of the decision heightens your emotions. So let's say you're on a first date and you don't want to rush in one more time to another relationship, but just the act of trying to decide what to do at the end of the evening can shut down your ability to evaluate risk and increase the emotional intensity that's telling you, yeah, why not? Just you gotta live, right? There's nothing to lose. And this can apply not just to dating, but to all kinds of decisions that you make, to buy an expensive TV, or to give your boss a piece of your mind, or to tell a little lie about something. In the moment, it seems like no big deal, but with CPTSD, your normal sense of what's a good idea and a bad idea is shut down. So you can't sense the potential consequences, not really. From the outside, it looks like plain old impulsiveness. And, that accurately describes what it is, but from the inside, that's not what it feels like. And I want you to think about these feelings because it can help you to learn to notice when you're kind of in a state where you could be making a trauma-driven decision, and then you have the opportunity to pause and pull back and get a reality check before moving forward. And that's really important because with CPTSD, we can make major decisions, not because they're best for us, but because our trauma was distorting things and driving us. Anger does it. Shame does it. Hating ourselves and wanting those feelings to stop can do it. And when that sadness and emptiness of CPTSD are just burning in you, and there's a desperation to feel better, well, you grasp on to these decisions for what feels like survival or what feels like a burst of hope. Or it may just feel like the only chance you're ever going to have that one good thing you never had, like owning a house or having a partner. I understand that. I've been there. I've made ridiculous sacrifices just to know the feeling of fulfillment for a little bit. It's like a feeling of dignity, some legitimacy, recognition from other people. You know what? I am somebody. And on some level, you're sort of like taking a shortcut to that. But at least it's something instead of nothing. And at least you're trying. So when you're in the process of making one of these bad decisions, it's destructive, but it doesn't feel destructive. It can feel like a leap of faith, like a gesture of hope. So sometimes the trauma-driven decision is to say terrible things to people. It seems so necessary in the moment. So you say something hurtful, or you decide never to speak to somebody again. And it hurts you more than it hurts the other person usually, but make no mistake, it is hurting other people. It can, and it especially hurts people who depend on you. So let's go over the ways that you can tell when you just might be making a trauma-driven decision rather than a good decision. I'm going to give you a series of signs that you can notice that it might be happening, and then I'll give you some possible actions you can take so that you can be clearer before you do anything final. Okay, the signs you're making a trauma-driven decision. You are telling yourself that a situation you're about to get into may be bad, but you're rationalizing it by telling yourself that without this relationship, no one will love you, or no other place will ever hire you, or no other landlord will ever rent to you. And this is what I call crap fit. That's a word I made up for when we fit ourselves. We get too good at it, fitting ourselves to unacceptable people and situations. And I'll put a link to a video about that in the description section. But when you're crap fitting, you make decisions to go into something that doesn't work, or to run out on something that you actually need, that you like, that's a good thing in your life, a job, a relationship, a friendship. And you do it out of anger or shame or pride or panic, or you do it to make someone just see how it feels. Have you ever done that? Okay, next one, and this is the ultimate trauma-driven decision, is when you're thinking about hurting yourself in some way. That is not a rational decision. It's driven by trauma thinking. And if that's happening to you right now, don't even watch the rest of this video. Just reach out to a person who can help you, not a YouTube channel, like a professional. And if you need that, if you need online therapy, for example, I have a link for that in the description section too. And if you're thinking dark thoughts as well, this would be a good time to say, please don't post those thoughts here on my channel, because one is, this is YouTube, like people can't really help you with it. But also, when you have self-harming thoughts, it hurts other people who read them, who are exposed to them. Dark thoughts are very contagious. And I'm just going to ask you to really support everybody in their healing here by taking dark thoughts to people and sharing encouragement here on YouTube. Now, I'm not the person to help you in a crisis. I'm here to teach you stuff, but I'm not the person to help you in a crisis. There are people who can do that for you, and I want you to have that if that's what you need. Okay, the next way you know that you're making a trauma-driven decision is when you're in a situation where you feel pressured to do the thing that other people want or another person wants, because you're not yet strong enough to say it's not what you want. Now, sometimes this is people pleasing, or sometimes it's just confusing about what you want. CPTSD can make it kind of hard to hold that knowledge when you're in the presence of other people and in a scary situation and just trying to make them happy and not create conflict. And if you think you don't deserve to have a voice when you're making decisions with someone else, that could be trauma talking too. Okay, next one. You could be making a trauma-driven decision when you find that your standards for what's acceptable are going all over the place. So one day you say, I'm not going to tolerate that, somebody calling me names or something. And the next day you have some reason why this time it's okay. We've all done that, right? But that's a sign. If your standards are not stable and you're not clear what they are, pause. You might be making a trauma-driven decision. All right, next one. You're accepting unacceptable things with the rationale that in the future, you'll start requiring something better. Or in the future, the other person will change. Or in the future, you will change, or you'll have different choices. Possibly you will. But when you're counting on something unseen like that, you could be making a trauma-driven decision. All right, next one. When you're thinking about making a tough decision, you find yourself avoiding talking to anyone because you suspect or you know that they're going to see right through it and they're going to call you out on it. So either you hide or you lie or you omit little details to avoid their judgment, right? Basically because you're ashamed, because you know the decision's not a good one. You know on some level, and you know they're going to see it. So when you find yourself doing this, here is what you can do. 1, you can write down what you really want in your life. Don't get vague about this. Don't omit things just because they seem impossible. You can keep this as a reference when you're feeling stressed and dysregulation and pressure is coming on to that you have to make a fast decision about something and tempting you towards accepting less than you really want. You can reference what you wrote, all right? 2, you can slow down your decisions. People with CPTSD just do better when they have time to consider big decisions, especially if emotions like fear or lust or anger are just running high. 3, you can run decisions by a trusted friend or mentor, somebody who's not affected by your decision, in fact, would be ideal. And it needs to be someone who has some wisdom about life and who has your best interests at heart. 4, you can do some research on your options. This is called due diligence. You can get online, you can get some information, you can ask people who might have faced this decision before. What did they do? Why did they decide that? Do they see any downsides to the options you're considering? You don't have to take their advice, but you can hear it. All right. 5, when someone else is involved in your decision making, you can muster the courage to express your concerns about going forward. So sometimes when 2 people are really excited about something, there's this kind of magical thinking that comes on and everybody's afraid to break the bubble. And when that's happening, it only takes one person to say how they really feel or what they fear. And the bad part of that magic vanishes and it leaves behind the real part. And that is the part you want. You want the real part. If speaking the truth bursts the magic, it's not magic. It's delusion, really. Reality is where you want to be. All right, 6, if you have to make a big decision alone, you can try thinking of someone in your life, living or dead, who loves you and cares about you, and ask yourself, given what I know today, what would they tell me to do? Or what would a person who doesn't have CPTSD do? Is this something that needs more time maybe for me to figure out whether it's good for me? Is this good for my children? I always had a theory that what was good for my children was good for me. So 7, while you're thinking it through, check in with yourself. Some things you can ask yourself are, is there something I know but I'm trying not to see? And think about those things that you really want in life. Are you choosing next steps that still keep those options possible, or are you canceling what you really want by the choice you're making? Is there anything you don't like about the choice you're considering? If the things you don't like were to never change, how would you feel about that? What would that mean for you? And finally, with any choice that worries you, think for a moment if you're still able to make a different choice. With that choice that worries you, visualize what steps you'd take and what it feels like to change your mind and do the other choice. You don't have to change your mind, but just kind of think it through. Like, how would I step back from this and do the other thing? or just not do this thing, and kind of rehearse that and make friends with it so that it remains not a scary place you can't go, but an actual option that you can use if you decide that it's best. Okay? Now, one great thing about healing trauma is that you have choices. And that means when you make a mistake, and we all make mistakes, it's part of healing, you'll have the ability to see it and do something about it and get back on your path faster than you used to be able to do. And if you struggle with decisions because you have a hard time detecting where other people are coming from, I'm going to point you towards this video right here. I teach you how to get out of confusion and get clarity around your relationships. So you might like that. I will see you very soon.